I was really hoping to go to Spain, and I'm based in Finland, so it would have been a nice change of climate from Finnish to Spanish, but well, say hopefully, hopefully at some point later. I also lost 350 euros of my own money on the flight, so let's see if I can get it back somehow. The airline refused.
You will.
Yes. If I share my screen. All right. Sorry. So my name is Pavel. As you know, I've met some of you, but not everybody. I'm currently a 30-year postdoc in Finland in the Finnish Natural Resources Institute. I've worked for most of my career with eddy-covariance, with the measurement of surface fluxes in the boreal ecosystems. But for the last 2 years, almost as much, I've been involved in drone work. And the topic today is combining the UAV-based thermal imaging and eddy covariance to study surface fluxes, surface exchange. So the main idea here is that we have two independent data sources covering the same natural processes. So we have a drone with a thermal camera aiming at the ground in the hovering flight and recording a thermal video. But we also have eddy covariance, which is recording heat fluxes at high, using the high frequency recordings of wind components and air temperature. And in turbulent boundary layer, the surface exchange is mainly conducted by thermal, by turbulent movement of the air. So as we have the wind imposed on the surface, in turbulent conditions, we typically have coherent structures, so the large-scale updrafts and downdrafts of cold and dry, or conversely warm and moist air that are responsible for the surface exchange. So the point is to combine these two independent data sources to study the surface exchange of heat. So ideally, as we have the drone hovering over the ecosystem, so this is my peatland, sea canal in this case, we're aiming to analyze the data in the way that so as to represent the temperature recording as a series of ground-based thermometers. So eventually we would have the equivalent of thousands of tiny, very localized thermometers on the ground. So each corresponding to 1 pixel of your video. And as you see here, I tried to represent the approximate spatial coverage. So the resolution would definitely be enough to represent individual vegetation communities and small-scale processes. So my equipment is the drone Matrice 210 version 2, the new one, bought last year. Quite fancy, with the ZenMuse X-T2 camera. It has the highest possible resolution and the 30 Hertz video rate, which is an overkill, as I found. And this eddy-covariance setup, it's part of the ecosystem site, CCANEV1 peatland. It's a fen, actually. This is our data. So this is what our site looks like from the air. So this is just maybe 20% of the total peatland area. So it has a complex shape. It has many ecological zones and kind of peatland types, vegetation communities, and so forth, drainage zones. Though we're working in the fen area of this complex. That's my drone. I started from this wooden platform, and I just fly up to 500 meters. So my question, because this was my first project, so I was kind of pretty much in the dark regarding what preparations have to be done. I had to kind of come up with things like in very short notice. Some of them were slightly makeshift and kind of temporary, but I think it worked in the end. So I realized, okay, for georeferencing, I need targets on the ground. So obviously for thermal imaging, the only way to do this is to have the aluminum crosses of sufficient size. So I just placed 4 2x2 meter aluminum crosses on the ground, approximately 100 meters from the center of the image, where I expected the center to be. So this proved to be a good solution. Then I also wanted to conduct the correction for the absolute temperature by measuring the water pool. So you see, I ordered the largest size Chinese water pool that was available, but obviously the size wasn't sufficient, well, as you will see.
Good morning, everybody.
Good morning. So this is what the site looks from the drone. So this is the 500-meter altitude from which I was conducting the survey. That's the entire field of view. So the camera is combined thermal and RGB, so I'm able to kind of see it in real color. It's really helpful. The drone is able to hover for 20 minutes at this altitude. So this approaches the half-hour typical averaging time that that's accepted in the meteorology and existing monitoring. So the 4 targets are now marked by the arrow, and the eddy covariance is in the center of this area, and the water pool is also there. So you see, there's quite a bit of heterogeneity. Okay, so closer to the topic of this meeting is that I guess this is classified as part of the radiometric correction. So we have a significant vignetting effect, which reaches 2, 3, sometimes, well, I would say about 3 degrees in this case. I've made many attempts to correct it because I've read in some there were references stating that one can just fit an ellipsoid to the thermogram. So if the thermogram is homogeneous, I mean, so if the temperature field that you're sensing is homogeneous. But this wasn't the case because my ellipsoids repeatedly fails to represent this effect. So the only viable solution to this was to fit a 4th order polynomial surface. And this was a perfect solution. So obviously the effect is a bit more complex than an ellipsoid. And with the 4th order surface, this correction was perfect. And so I was ready, I got rid of this vignetting effect, which is one of the biggest artifacts in this camera, really. Then the geometric correction. So because this was my first shot at geometric correction of anything, and I didn't want to become specialized in this topic. So I thought, okay, can we just do this in the simplest possible way using proprietary software? So in this case, MATLAB. MATLAB has a ready-made solution for geometric calibration of regular cameras. So I wanted to imitate it, but in the case of thermal camera. So I had to devise a modified target. I found an aluminum plate, 3 millimeter plate, very plain. So it's very flat without any kind of imperfections in it. And I just placed glued 5 centimeter paper squares onto it. So as you can see in the picture, it provides for a high thermal contrast, well, due to the difference in emissivity. And after making 30 captures of this plate, of this checkerboard, it created it was sufficient amount of data to conduct the calibration and derive the lens distortion coefficients. So as you see, that there's a very fancy scientific process. So I had to heat up the checkerboard on my stove to increase the thermal contrast. Yeah, I guess I'm not publishing this picture though. All right, so just to give you an idea where this study goes next. Effectively, we're supposed to have each pixel corresponding to the same point of the ground. So this is a image registration problem. So before and after pictures demonstrate how the two different frames separated by some period of time are first mismatched and then matched after applying the intensity-based image registration process. And this is done to each frame. The frames are high frequency, so originally 30 Hertz, but then I downsampled to 10 Hertz. And then for some analysis, I downsampled further to 1 Hertz resolution because for the uncertainty and errors are often override the So they exist on even slower time and spatial scales than this. So from this point of view, it doesn't make much sense to kill your system with the excessive amounts of data that doesn't represent the physical process, but noise instead. I conduct georeferencing by inverse affine transform onto UTM grid. So this is again done using the 4 targets. I detect the targets in the image using, well, image analysis tools within these 4 regions of interest. This is a pretty technical process. So it actually, we've done also an analysis of the camera position in 3D space, just to find out whether the camera shake was, so the deviation of the camera angle from the nadir was significant, but it turned out that it was very, very small. So the gimbal of this of the Zenmuse X-T2 camera was very efficient, and it eliminated any kind of wind-related shaking. So ultimately, after I have geo-referenced all the frames of one 20-minute flight, we were able to average everything. So this is an average temperature map for that period. So of course you're starting to wonder about the emissivity problem, but well, that's a big problem because we're expecting emissivity variation on the peatland surface. So the peatland is kind of higher temperature here, and the lower temperatures on the border are forest. So it's a conifer, mainly Scots pine. The expected emissivity variation in space is something about 94% to 98%. So this translates into a temperature bias of some 7 degrees, I think, according to calculation. So that's now the big problem for you to think about how to measure emissivity in the field, and how do we create an emissivity mask representing each pixel. Yeah, that's the next problem. So now we, as we have each individual frame of this survey, and we have the average temperature field, we're able to recreate the Reynolds averaging, which is typical for micrometeorology. And by simply subtracting each frame from the average temperature from each frame, so we have the average temperature field on the left. Then in the center, in the central panel, we have a single temperature fluctuation map, so obtained by this different. That's a difference. Reynolds averaged fluctuation, Reynolds fluctuation. And on the right, we have the RGB image of the same area, just to guide you. The eddy-covariance footprint is superimposed also, and the white cross marks the eddy-covariance tower. So then, of course, voila, we're able to, I'm able to start this. We can play this as a video. So now we're looking at thermal fluctuations created by the turbulent structures, warm in blue and warm in red, and blue and cold. Wind direction, as you can see clearly from here, it's from the south. The eddy-covariance footprint shows where we expect to find the match between these data sets. Well, there's some small artifacts which I've already corrected, so this is the kind of flashing of the picture. So the messages you gather from here is that okay, so you're immediately able to judge the about the spatial scale of this fluctuation, about the temporal scales. So you're able to find a relationship between the evolution of this turbulent field with the average atmospheric parameters, such as stability, for instance. So concerning the water pool, which as I said failed. Well, apparently the size of it, so 2 × 3 meters, wasn't sufficient for this situation, because it's covered by too few pixels. So I'm not sure what kind of target I'm supposed to use in this case. So when I'm flying at 500 meter altitude and looking down, so the minimum pixel size is 61 centimeter. So the water pool should be ideally something like at least 4 times 4 meters. Well, so considering some uncertainty in this location of the pixel, so after georeferencing, this might be enough. But yeah, I have to do some more Googling for Chinese water pools. I might stop here because I have, well, okay, let's say I'm applying many more image analysis tools to kind of tackle the and trying to characterize the turbulent field which we find from this thermal videos. So for instance, I'm using a watershed algorithm to isolate the cold and warm structures, and applying some tools for automatic determination of their spatial scales, length, width, as well as the angle of rotation. But these results probably warrant another presentation. So I will stop here and thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Pavel. Very interesting presentation. And I think that our colleagues, maybe if they have some questions, suggestions, like comments, please unmute your mic and please go on.
Sorry, I'm Giuseppe. Sorry, I missed the first part of your presentation. Sorry.
Hello, Giuseppe.
Ciao. Just oh, sorry. Maybe this question is not appropriate, but just to clarify to me, you are doing this in order to try to estimate the sensible rate flux spatially distributed, or just to depict the fluctuation of the temperature due to the eddies that are near the surface?
Yeah, yes, both. So both aims are pursued. Yes. So I'm not sure if I can publish both in the same paper or if it's going to be separate studies. But yeah, these are all my aims.
Okay.
And regarding, so just show you how which is the closest we've got to the fluxes so far is maybe this image showing the standard deviation of pixel temperature. So the standard deviation of temperature on the surface, so it's directly related to sensible heat exchange and ground heat flux. So this is one of the products that we're able to present based on the same data.
Okay.
Yeah, and this, I should stress this is insensitive to the absolute temperature. So kind of the emissivity related and other and artifacts due to other sources reasons, they're not very significant. So they don't alter the pixel standard deviation.
Okay. Understood.
Not too much anyway.
Okay, thank you.
Did you try to...
Good morning. I have a question when it's possible.
Juan.
Okay. Hello, everybody. My name is Juan Manuel. I am a professor of the University of Jaén, Spain. Firstly, I would like to thank you, Pavel, for your interesting presentation. Okay.
Thank you.
I have a question about the geometric registration. Okay. I have a bit experience with this type of camera.
Yeah.
And have you tested the option to highlight the border in the image to do that instead of head the panel?
To highlight the border of
the borders of the thermal image using, for example, the MSAX technology that this camera provides. For example, this camera takes simultaneously RGB and thermal images, okay?
Yeah.
And you can use the overlap between these type of images in order to highlight the borders in thermal images. Have you tested the...
Oh yeah, now I see what you mean. Yes, but yes, this is an automatic function option in this camera that you're able to enhance the kind of the kind of visually enhance the contrast in the thermal image by mixing the thermal and the RGB images together. Yeah, now I see what you mean. Yes, I've seen the way it works, but it, I mean, it has a visible bias, I think. So because the cameras are of course different, and the automatic algorithm that performs this combination, combining it, I don't think it works perfectly. So I'm not sure if we're able to derive the lens distortion from this combined analysis.
Okay. No, I have used this option in order to map the thermal images on the point cloud, because, well, it's my research line,
Okay.
and I use this option of this camera in order to correct the geometric distortion of the thermal images. Maybe it could be a good option.
Okay, well, this is a kind of an indirect correction. Well, I imagine it probably works if you have tested, but I just wanted to do it in the simplest possible way without any extra work, and it seems that it works because I'm obtaining very reasonable lens distortion coefficient and camera intrinsic extrinsic parameters this way. So yeah, but it's just a pure imitation of RGB of an RGB camera.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. If there are other questions, I think Anna wanted to.
I wonder if you tried, first of all, thank you. It was really informative and very interesting. Did you try to look on your pool before georeferencing? How bad is it? Like
it's almost as bad. Yeah, of course, you're referencing kind of, yeah, it does enhance the kind of the spatial uncertainty in your pixel. And it also remixes the pixel temperatures a bit, so to further like degrade the situation. But it wasn't much better. So the pixel size was like 61 centimeter in the center of the image. So let's say falling onto the pool, and it wasn't very good. So the RMSE of the image registration and georeferencing together, I think it was 0.48 meters. So you have this added kind of wobbling of the true pixel center location. Yeah. So we definitely need a bigger target. So that's, I mean, it turns out to be quite a problem. What kind of targets to use when you are flying at 500 meter altitude, and of course having the low thermal resolution of the camera.
Yeah, I just wonder about this rubber around it also. It's also have it.
Yeah, the rubber is mixed. Unfortunately, the pixels, they mix rubber, water surface, and the surrounding grass.
Yeah, exactly. You created like a new mixture, right?
Yeah.
And also, I'm really interested in emissivity. You mentioned how you're going. You do not have two wavelengths, like, right? You do not have two bands. Otherwise, it's.
Well, yeah, the emissivity is big an issue here because in most studies I'm aware about of so far, the emissivity is usually assumed as a constant over the area, or sometimes it's modeled using some very simple approach. Well, if you have some obvious driver that kind of causes the spatial differences in emissivity.
I'm asking because we are trying to retrieve stresses in agriculture through the emissivity. So
I mean, yeah, I'm exploring the ways to do this in the field, to obtain the true field measurement of emissivity. I think the box method is one option. Okay. I think it's viable, but it has to be really adapted to the specific vegetation we have, because it's just a very small kind of low stature of sedges and mosses in the peatland. Or then we're going to do the same with the conifer trees. So then the next question is how to adapt this to the conifer trees.
Yeah.
Because I don't think anyone has done this.
No. This is why I'm asking, because it's super interesting, but also challenging. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Anna. Thank you, Pavel.
I think, sorry, Pavel, I think you can also explore the possibility to use the surface renewal approach using this data that you have. I think there are a lot of potentialities in this approach, always with the goal to assess the sensible flux. That is one of the big problem when you have to solve the surface energy balance. So I don't know if you already have this intention or the direction. I don't know.
Yeah, definitely. Yes, that's one of the plans to try that. But unfortunately, all these methods, they inevitably involve the use of meteorological data, and then the main uncertainty here is coming from the upscaling of your meteorology measurements in one point to the to the field.
Yeah, I see.
Yeah, so it's still limited. Yeah, there's also the flux variance approach and other similar methods involving the analysis of the time series of your data. Yeah, well, we'll see. We'll see where it gets.
Okay.
Thank you, guys. If there are anyone to add something.
I have another question, sorry. It seems like it's really flattening the surface, so on the thermal image, you do not bothered by volumetric properties of your targets, or they're just simply not there?
By volumetric, you mean like, for instance, what?
For trees, for instance.
Well.
No, before vignetting, I'm not referring to vignetting. I'm saying like there is clearly a forest, and it seems like it's absolutely.
Well, yeah, kind of. We're not we're not aiming at the forest per se. So we were kind of interested in the flat, kind of mossy peatland surface. So it's like the trees occur very seldom. So the tree you see in this picture, for instance, is just a very rare.
Yeah. So
kind of. Yeah. So yeah, we just treat it as a very flat surface, but that's true. I mean, even in the georeferencing and other analysis, we like if it were a slightly more 3D this surface, then we would have had to address this question. But the other thing is that we already have a LiDAR scan of this area. So we might apply this and see if we're able to associate for instance, the fluctuation in temperature, such as this, the standard deviation of temperature, to the elements of microlandscape. So the somewhat higher and lower lying areas. So the hummocks and hollows. I mean, in peatland terminology. So yeah, this will
be the next step.
Yeah, and as you see here, for instance, the dark area lying like in the lower third of the picture. So this corresponds to the wet, boggy kind of to the lowest lying area for this image. So the big hollows, and of course, well, we see the clear correlation with the temperature fluctuation. So it's wet, so therefore it has high heat capacity. And yeah, it's not affected by the overpassing turbulence as much as the other drier parts of the peatland.
Okay. Yeah. But it's micro topography, so it's it's something on the scale of 1 to 3 meters. Yeah. But this is not accumulation. It's just simply the water comes up, right?
So sorry, what this?
It's like the water comes from the ground itself. It's not accumulation. I'm saying like it's not about rainfall over there.
Well, I mean, it's a big question. But well, for this type of system, it's this is a fence. So this wet area you see in the lower part of the picture, this is the drainage zone. So so yeah, so this part of peatland is affected by the active ground flow patterns. Okay. So it's not just the rainfall.
Yeah, I'm just asking because we are interested in field rain, runoff and run-on and stuff like that. So
really
interesting. But again, it's tricky.
Yeah. Right.
Thank you. Okay, thank you very much. Thank you very much. Any comments, or will? Okay, I think there are not any more comments. Thank you very much, Pavel, for sharing with us your research. It was very interesting, and we'll stay close to see what's going on. I will stop a little bit the recording.